How's it going? My name is Bahr. I'm going to be speaking with you here tonight. So I am in my fourth year here at Mizzou. I've got a psychology degree. I'm getting a nursing degree as well next year. I'm also finishing up my time as the campus ministry intern here at Mizzou. And I want to thank you so much for being here tonight, for spending your Wednesday night here with us at E3. I'm actually super excited for this talk tonight. I'm so excited for this night. Just in general. I'm also a little sentimental about tonight because I'm going to be leaving Mizzou in the next 3 or 4 weeks. I know there's a lot of people who can sympathize with that, and this is likely going to be the last talk I give at Newman, and I love this community so much. I love the people who I've met here. I love the programs we have. I've met, honestly, some of my lifelong friends here. I bet you know how that feels. This place is just such a blessing, and I love everything about it. I love Mizzou as a whole as well. And I'm the only one in my family who's ever gone to Mizzou. I'm like the trailblazer of the bunch. All my siblings went to other universities. My first brother, my brother Justin, went to an all-women's college his first year. My mom taught her so we could. And then he transferred. My other brother, he went to a school in St. Louis. He was there for like a semester, and then he dropped out and decided that he would become a paramedic, and now he was a paramedic on a helicopter and he's doing pretty well. My sister went to school in St. Louis as well, and she got her undergraduate degree there, and then she moved on for her master's degree at Western Illinois University in the tiny town of Macomb, Illinois. So, that's the story I want to tell you about tonight. Has anyone ever been to Macomb, Illinois? You're lying. There's they're like, oh, he asked a question, we should participate. No. I've been to Macomb, Illinois once. It was when my sister graduated from the school. It was a couple summers back, and I was living in Columbia at the time, and I decided to make the trip up. It was late one Friday night. She was graduating Saturday morning, so I made the trip up by myself, and I was driving to Macomb. I had no idea where this town was, 3-4 hours away, and I just plugged the directions into my phone. And I made it maybe an hour, and my phone started losing reception because I was out in the nowhere. And so, like any good millennial, I screenshotted all of them. It was 8 pages worth of directions when I had a signal. I kept driving for a little while, and I probably made about 30 more minutes, and I noticed my battery was totally draining on my phone because it was searching for a signal. And rather than put it on airplane mode, I decided that I'd pull over and I took my laptop out. And I plugged in the USB for my laptop into the cord that goes into my phone, and I charged it that way. My phone didn't like that, so I made it 15 more minutes, and then my laptop just died. And with it, my phone died, and I hadn't written down the directions because whatever. And I didn't know what to do. I was just out in the middle of nowhere, 11 o'clock at night, surrounded by corn and cows. And so I did what any other person in my situation would do. I pulled my car over, and I just sobbed. In my steering. I was just I don't know where I'm going. And I don't know what I'm doing out here. I am stuck. I got myself back together. Ron, you got this. I got my phone, I just started driving. I made it 5 minutes. There was a sign that said Macomb, Illinois. I followed that sign. And I was there with my sister's friend. Never told anyone this story. She doesn't even know about this. I tell you that story, though, not because I want you to pity my road trip across the Midwest to God knows where I was going. Because I wonder how many times it's been each and every one of us. Not in driving to the middle of nowhere and getting lost, but rather in the ministry that we do. So we started the series, Alex started us out, the series about spreading the good news, and he started us out a couple weeks ago to talk on the Great Commission, Matthew 28, go therefore and make disciples of all nations. share the good news of Jesus Christ. And then last week, Dale gave this fire talk about the good news himself, about Jesus. And about what made him so approachable in spreading his message, the fact that he was so loving and so merciful. And I just wonder how many times we've been there. Like, I'll be honest, I'm not Jesus. I don't always find spreading the good news that easy. You know, so I wonder how many times we hit those setbacks. I know I have. You know, like the GPS bugging out and losing signal. And in my ministry, that might look like I try to share my faith with a friend, but that friend isn't receptive. And then I don't know where to go. Or, you know, your laptop in the passenger seat dies. And in my ministry, I start losing energy. I start losing motivation to go and share the good news of Jesus. And that Great Commission just gets a little bit harder. Until finally one thing just leads to another. I'm just like, God, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is too hard. I don't know what to do. I am stuck. Maybe you know that feeling in your own. I think there's some comfort, though, in realizing that none of us feel that way alone, that anyone who's ever tried to share their faith has been there before. And beyond that, we are not the first people to have felt this way, right? And so tonight we are going to talk about the first people who have ever been like, man, Jesus, I am stuck. I don't know how to do this. And fittingly, they were his very first people, the apostles, the people who he loved more than anyone. We're going to talk about what their ministry was like. How did they share their faith? So the way the series goes is Great Commission, good news. How did Jesus make it known? How did his first people make it known? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. And so I want to go back to the very beginning. I want to go back to what Jesus told his men. The Great Commission, go therefore, make disciples of all nations. I think about that, and I'll be honest, I would argue that that is probably the hardest task that has ever been given to anyone. Take this message and casually reach the entire world with it. What? I can't imagine a task any harder. I think ministry has to be one of the hardest jobs that a person can do because it's never finished. Right? There's always one more invitation to extend. There's always one more person to bring in. There's always one more prayer to lift up. Even at Newman, here in this awesome community, we've done some incredible work this year, but it's not done, right? We've seen over 400 individual people at E3 this year. We've had dozens of Bible studies pop up on every corner of this campus. There were 3 when I was a sophomore 2 years ago. We've sent 2 mission trips to other countries, one to Mexico City, one to San Salvador, in El Salvador, and this place, just in general, is electric every night. Thomas asked me earlier, he's like, is the band too loud? I was like, no, I think the people are too loud tonight, Thomas. They were just straight throwing up right now. This place is, I used the word throwing up. But really, even then, this place is on fire. The entire Newman community is on fire, and still we are not even close to being done with our ministry here on Mizzou's campus. And so then I want you to put yourself in the apostles' shoes, right? Jesus taking them out into the middle of the desert and just being like, well, I'm about to leave you. What are you waiting for? Go. And what resources do the apostles really have to go? 2,000 years ago. Maybe a pair of sandals. And a tunic. And a walking stick. And maybe a camel if you're lucky. Yeah, Jesus said, go. And go they did. And then I think about us trying to win this world over for Jesus Christ. And the way the apostles did it, they couldn't win the world over all at once. That wasn't even physically possible for 12 average guys stranded in the middle of the desert. What they had to do was set off on their way. and share Jesus Christ one-on-one with all the people who they encounter. When we hear those one-on-one interactions, we hear about them, like these interactions that they had with people who were total strangers all over the Bible in the Acts of the Apostles. In chapter 3, we hear about Peter and John. They came upon a beggar outside the temple. And this man, he reached out, he was asking for them, please heal me. And we're told that Peter, he just looked at them and said, look at me. And then he cured the man in the name of Jesus. Right? And we're told, I got to find my spot now because I haven't looked at this paper at all. We're told that the man went off walking and jumping and praising God after this encounter. Right? A couple chapters later, we hear about the Apostle Philip. He came upon this man named Simon. And Simon was like a famous sorcerer at the time. He might have equated himself to God. And yet when Philip talked to him, when he met him one-on-one, Simon had like this radical change of heart. When he encountered Philip, when he encountered Jesus Christ, Philip, he was totally transformed. Right? Like, then we're told that people even began laying the sick and the crippled out in the streets so that even the shadow of an apostle might fall on them. Like, everyone wanted to know the people who knew Jesus. Like, the apostles could do absolutely no wrong in their ministry. And even when they were threatened and persecuted and tortured for spreading the good news, we're told, and I have to look at my paper again, Acts chapter 5, that they rejoiced, having been found worthy to suffer dishonor for the sake of Jesus' name. Like, they rejoiced because they were worthy to suffer. And so now bring that back to us, right? Bring that back to here, like a bunch of regular people, just like the apostles were, confronted with that exact same mission: go and make disciples of all nations. And I'm just going to shoot you straight. I think that we have it a little easier than the apostles. But like, what are my persecutions? Not being tortured or, thrown into a jail. Like, maybe being embarrassed or uncomfortable for a couple minutes in sharing my faith. I think we have a lot more than like flip-flops and tunics, right? We have more resources than we know what to do with in our ministry, from like text messages to phone calls to Facebook invitations and even like microphones. Like, this sounds so crazy. Bear with me. The apostles didn't have one of these. Right? Like, but think about that. Like, they had absolutely no choice but to go and meet people one-on-one by fault of their circumstances. And we similarly are not going to bring other people to the faith unless we go about doing it the exact same way. Like, the truth, sadly, is that no one's going to encounter Jesus' love by me prancing around here talking to you for 20 minutes. And they're not going to, because that's not the way Jesus did it. That's not the way that he ministered, and that's not the way that his apostles ministered. What Jesus had and what the apostles had were interactions that were filled with love, like genuine, authentic love and concern for the other person in a given moment. They wanted to reach the ends of the earth, not to meet some quota or fulfill just that goal that Jesus had given them, but they wanted a world that was going to be absolutely rocked by love. And so when we evangelize, like whether we're inviting people to Bible studies or spaghetti dinners or even E3 tonight, we don't do that because we need to like fill the seats and meet some sort of quota in our faith. We do it because we need a world, a campus that is just absolutely wrecked by love. And so those one-on-one interactions, our true friendships, are where that love naturally begins. If we just stop and look at people as individuals the way Peter did. And so when we talk about like spreading the good news, spreading the gospel in this series, we're not talking about having to stand up in the middle of like speaker circle and preach everything about Jesus. And we're not talking about having to like slap people over the heads with our Bibles, right? Like, no. What we're talking about is the fact that each and every one of us has some good news. And we each come to know God's blessings in some brilliant and beautiful and awesomely unique way. And so what I want to ask you tonight is, what's your good news? Like, what brought you in the door here tonight? Why do you think Jesus' love is worth spreading? I know for me, that answer is actually really simple. Reality is just like, God has done some incredible work in my life. He's picked me up and carried me through some of my most pressing times. And I know that my life is so much better with Him in it now than my life was without Him. And so I want everyone to experience that. I want the people I love to experience that. I want you to experience that, right? Because I want nothing but the best for each and every one of you and the people you love. And for me, I found the answer to be Jesus. And so if each of us has our own good news, that means that we're each going to spread that good news in different ways. There's no prototype. There's no one right way to share our faith. And so what I want to do now is I want to tell you about some of the ways that I've seen Him shared for the first time right here in the Newman community. I want to tell you about some of those interactions that I have witnessed that happen here every single day, that happen out in our world every single day. Because that's really what spreading the gospel looks like. Take my story, for example. First time that I encountered Christ's love here in this community was from Laura Colt, a longtime friend of mine, who our second week of freshman year said, "Ryan, please come to this Bible study with me. It will be fun." And I think about how Laura Colt likely encountered Christ for the first time here in this community, and I'd argue it was at pie night during her welcome week freshman year, where some random Newman student working at the dessert table decided to give her 5 free pies because why not? Anything about Shelby Grove? Shelby, isn't here? Oh, boo! She's so cool. I think about the first time, or one of the times she encountered Christ's love, and it was when a bunch of us were talking to her the next year at her welcome week, and I accidentally called her Liz, and then stuffed her purse with 30 free Newman pens, and was like, "We're cool people, come back." Clearly she did. Or Dale Dickens. Dale, are you in here? One of the first times she encountered Christ's love here is when she wandered in and was greeted by 2 Newman students, Allie and Julia, who welcomed her with open arms after an abrupt college transfer. Or even Christian Bosher. I'm going to ask if he's here. He's the president of our Catholic Student Association, who was invited by a fraternity brother to come to Mass one time. One thing led to another. It all took off from there. So what I guess I want to make clear is that sharing our faith doesn't have to be this big, scary task that we sometimes make it up to be. Right? It doesn't need to be preaching the gospel out in the streets day after day after day. Are we called to share the gospel message with our words? Yes. Yes. Absolutely yes. We should do that. But where that starts is in these one-on-one relationships, authentic friendships with the people who we love and care about. People respond to. And so I want to ask you another question. I want to ask you 2 of them, actually. I want to ask you, who is the first person to share Christ's love with me? Who's the first person to share Christ's love? Because that's how it happens. And then I want you to ask yourself, what one person am I being called to share Christ's love with now? Again, this idea of one-on-one evangelization, it's nothing new. We're not onto anything groundbreaking with the approach of establishing friendships with people, but I think it's actually a really beautiful reality. Like, think about it. 12 dudes got stranded in a desert, each entrusted with the task of going and making disciples of the entire world. And so what they do, each of them went their own way. They wandered into whatever community they stumbled upon, and they shared their experience with 2, 3 people. And then we had 20 or 30 followers of Christ. And then hopefully each of those 2 or 3 people shared their experience of that love with 2 or 3 other people, until we had, like 100 followers. And before long, those original 12 have multiplied to 1.2 billion people the entire world over. Like, what I want you to understand is we are not at the beginning of spiritual multiplication. No, we are in the middle of 2,000 years of ongoing spiritual multiplication. Like, we are the people from 12, and that is awesome. And so you do not have to reach every single person the world over with Christ's love. That's not what he meant when he said, go and make disciples of all nations. He didn't say, you make disciples of all nations. And we know that because the apostles did not make disciples of every single person the world over. Why should you believe me? Because we're still doing it. Like, they didn't do it all themselves. But given the progress that we've made from those original 12 guys and walking around the desert in their sandals to where we are right now, I would say that accomplishing the Great Commission is entirely possible. I love the words of like all the people said amen, that first song we were singing. I think it's awesome because it's a reminder that that's what we're working towards. It's like a world where everyone is saying amen. I know that I am loved. So tonight I want to finish by telling you my final story. It's the story of when I went to a play in 3rd grade. The play was about an old Indian folk tale, but its message has remained with me ever since, and so I want to share it with you tonight. The story goes like this. There was once this ruler in India who ordered all of the rice in the country to be locked away. So people laboring hard on for their own fill of rice had to turn it all over to this ruler, who would lock it up in dozens of royal storehouses, all for himself. Meanwhile, the people of the country had next to nothing to eat. And before long, a famine struck the country. And in this famine, the ruler decided to throw this wild, extravagant party with all the people he loved to celebrate the fact that he was not going to be affected by this lack of food because he had it all for himself. While this party was going on, a little girl went to one of the royal storehouses that a servant was taking rice out of, and she gathered up all the little grains of rice that one of the servants dropped. She filled a little pocket in her skirt. But rather than taking that rice back home for herself and for her family, she decided that she would take it back to the ruler. And she did. She gave it back to him and said, I believe this is yours. And he was so impressed with her honesty, as if he had many morals. He was so impressed with her honesty that he said, I will give you anything that you desire for returning this to me. And the little girl said, I would like 1 grain of rice. The ruler's like, she wants 1 grain of rice. And the girl's like, I want 1 grain of rice. But then tomorrow, I want 2 grains of rice. And the day after that, I want 4 grains of rice. And the day after that, I want 8. And so on until after 30 days, you have doubled my rice each day. And we'll call it even. The ruler was like, this girl is naive and misguided and little. I will give her what she asks. And so he did. And the little girl went on her way. She came back the next day. The ruler gave her 1 grain of rice. camp for her bed. Came back the day after that. She got her 2 grains of rice. The day after that, she came back and got 4 grains of rice. Right? And by the end of the week, she received 64 grains of rice. A few days later, she received 256 grains of rice. Enough for a tiny little girl handful. And by the end of the second week, 4,096 grains of rice, enough to fill a small bowl. The little girl returned day after day, her rice multiplying, until by the end of the third week, she had received 8 million grains of rice. And then, by the end of the fourth week, day 28, she received 134,218,228 grains of rice. Enough to fill a couple of the royal storehouses. And on the 30th and final day, the little girl was awarded 536,872,912 grains of rice. The final contents of every royal storehouse that this guy had kept. My turn. We don't have nice enough things to dress on. And all of that rice, rather than keeping it to herself the way he had, the little girl returned it to the people of the country, eager to share with them what was rightfully theirs. And so we aren't called to evangelize one person at a time because it's like the easiest, the most convenient, or even the most comfortable way of doing so. No, we're called to do that because it is authentic, it's what people respond to, and ultimately because it works. Just ask the little girl in the Indian boat. I think we live in a country and in a world, quite frankly, that is in a spiritual famine in many ways. Right? A world that is in need of the good news of Christ and His unconditional love in order to finally fill us up. So if you can bring Jesus Christ to just one person, and that person can bring him to one person, and that person can bring him to one more, we're looking at bringing the entire world to Him when all is said and done. So again, I just want to ask, who is that one person who you're being called to share His love with? Giving them that love that is rightfully